Baseball fans. This is Brandon Hall and Matt Payne, and we've been on the road. Spring break, 10 straight days. Who am I kidding, Matt? We got to see a ton of baseball. Are you freaking kidding me? Best time of the year. I don't care that I got in at 2 a.m., and I don't care that we're going to post this on a Thursday while recording on a Thursday. It's a great time. We can talk about baseball in North Carolina. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Been at the ballpark for however many days straight, eating ballpark food on the road. It's been good.
I had a
Got
rule. I was going to do one meal a day at the ballpark. That way I controlled, trying to stay on the diet, trying to stay good with that. East Mech, boy, they freaking brought it. They had at the Jack Sink, they had a Jamaican pulled jerk or a Jamaican jerk chicken off the grill with the yellow rice and salad. That was really good. And then the Terry Sanford tournament had a pork chop sandwich right off the grill, which was really good. So, but I was able to stay. I kept to my times. My last meal, except for last night, was at 7, so I could stay on my plan. And I, for the most part, was able to mix in a salad. So I felt pretty good about myself.
Did a lot better than me. I don't know if I ate before 9 o'clock. We were at Corinth last week, and the grill smelled really good. I did lunch, and I told myself I would not eat dinner until after the last game, and didn't make it. Went back and got another grilled hamburger, so it was good.
Yeah, last night was the only night I really cheated. I try to be done eating, in that 7:30 deal, and I try not to eat the next day until a little bit after afternoon. But the drive home, I was tired. I mean, that was 3 straight days, seeing 5 games, 5 games, 4 games. The last game at Terry Sanford was a great game. It was very competitive, but it was like watching a Sunday game in college, where the starters, who were both position players, were a little fatigued. More balls put in play. Defense was competitive, and effort was great, but it was a little sloppy at times. And so it's 5-0. It's 7-6. It's 11-7. It's 12-9. And in the 7th inning, I'm sitting there thinking maybe I can shoot out of here in the 5th and kind of still do my reports. But the East Bladen put the tying run on in the 7th. Down 12-9, and had a chance to maybe hit a double and tie the game up. Instead, they hit into a double play at the end of the game. But all in all, a great, really 10 days for us. I know we talked about it, the amount of material we had going out over Twitter, the amount of hits and the amount of kind of back and forth we've had with some players and some teams and some coaches has been fantastic. Getting that information out. We're well over 200 teams in the state of North Carolina that we've seen play this spring. Not just me and you, but our staff. Now that comes the fun part, though. Today we're going to do the podcast. We're going to start blogging today, tomorrow, probably into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, because we have got a ton of information to push out. What we sent out on Twitter was just kind of the tip of the iceberg, yeah?
Yeah, there's you can only get so much out when you're trying to watch games and tweet too, but a lot of information. Got to see a ton of players, a ton of teams, and then being at the coast, seeing some teams for the first time this year. It's been a great week.
No doubt. We're going to start with something that released yesterday on Prep Baseball Report from our draft guy, Shooter Hunt, who's kind of our national cross-checker. And then Dave Seifert, who works with us and D1Baseball.com, is kind of our college scout and prepping for the draft. They released a draft board yesterday. It's got some North Carolina influence right there. Number 4, Walker Jenkins, who you had a chance to see play this week at least twice over at the Big Rock tournament as South Brunswick was over at Morehead City. But what we're seeing at the top, we got 2 LSU guys, Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens. Walker at 4. Looking through the list just a little bit as it just dropped yesterday. Anything kind of stand out to you as you're just kind of flipping through it?
No, love seeing Walker there. I've never seen Max Clark in person. Would be interesting to see that in person. I know you have to compare him to what I've seen with Walker, and uh, he's fun to watch. And being obviously a lot of pro guys and decision makers in the ballpark, and kind of hearing things float around and what they have to say about him. He's a special talent that doesn't come along very often.
Yeah, and when you look at the two, Walker looks more the part. I think Max probably is a better runner just from what I've heard. I've actually seen Max run. I've heard what Max ran at one point coming from his mouth, which even if he didn't run that number, it was still if you lost like 2/10, it's still a 70 runner. I don't think Walker's quite to that level, but I do think the swing, that's where you're trying to compare the two players. Which one do you think is going to produce maybe more, maybe quicker in their journey to the big leagues? And I think it's going to be an interesting debate, that cross checkers are going to have because I think all the area guys in both areas love those two young men because they seem to be great guys.
Yeah, it was obviously Walker's power stands out, and he moves around the bases pretty well too. And what stands out is his relationship with his teammates, leadership skills, how engaged he is. He's playing center field, and there'll be a ball hit the left, and he's over there behind the left fielder backing up. It's impressive what he does and how hard he plays, and just they don't come along very often like that.
Well, one of the reasons that Wake Forest is ranked as high as they are with D1 baseball, I think has them at number 2 again this week, is they've got just a load of talent in this list that we just published. But you kind of go through it. I'm looking, kind of to see where, some of the other guys land. Alex Mooney is a shortstop at Duke, is at 51. Will Sanders is a Friday night guy at South Carolina, comes in at 52. I'm looking at some of these guys I saw at the NHSI in Cary a couple weeks are in the list. Some maybe a little bit higher than I would have had them. Noble Meyer, who we talked extensively about last 2 weeks ago, we have at number 8. And so we kind of continue to go through. And it's a good crop of high school guys in North Carolina. But when you start talking about trying to put the top 100 guys together with high school and college, there's a risk factor with high school bats. There's a risk factor even with high school arms. And I know you had a chance to talk to some people about, evaluators and how they're making decisions and how they're weighing talent versus risk. Speak on that a little bit as we're kind of getting set for that stretch run for guys like Chance Mako and Hayden LeFew and Tucker Holland. Obviously, Walker's going to be in that mix, and maybe some other bats that may come along, like our catcher at Wake Forest.
Yeah, at the top, Cruz and Skeens, 2 college guys, and they've been impressive. You hear the Strasburg comp with Skeens at times, and then the numbers Cruz puts up. But from a team standpoint, do you go college bat, college arm? The college bat will be closer to the big leagues, get there faster. But you take a kid like Walker Jenkins, and it may be a little bit longer to get there. But the grades they have on him, you're looking at a potential 10-year big leaguer, all-star. There's big time numbers on him, and it may take a little longer, but you may have a once in a generation talent there where versus a college bat, he may get there quicker, but the long haul may not be as good, and I think
You
those decision makers weigh that.
you experienced it a little bit, maybe not to the level that Walker's going to experience it, but talk about that development for hitters. Obviously you went from high school to college to the pro game, but I mean, Walker's a special talent. Max Clark's a special talent. Dylan Cruz can flat out play this game. What is it that Dylan Cruz needs to do before he gets to the big leagues? What is it that Walker Jenkins needs to see before he has that chance to kind of continue to climb that ladder? What's going to happen as they get into pro ball? What are the expectations as you're looking from an outside in that a player may not understand exactly how this is going to work as they get to that next level?
I think with what Cruz has done and being in the SEC, and he's facing Chase Dolander, who's in that league, so he's facing big league type arms, and he's seeing that. I don't think his learning curve will be as much. He's been through more. He's played a longer season. He's seen better stuff, better arms, and then obviously what he's done on the summer circuit. But you take Walker Jenkins, who high school season going into pro ball, he hasn't seen quality arms on a regular basis. He hasn't had to do it every day. So I think for the high school kid, it's maybe not as much a talent thing, but getting used to doing it every day, finding that routine, uh, seeing those arms all the time. Walker saw a lot of average high school arms, and then he faces Nathan Tigg yesterday, who's going to Vanderbilt, and when you see that once every month, it's a harder adjustment than seeing it every day.
Yeah, and I think the other thing from following some of my pitchers that kind of trekked into pro ball and talking to them, picking their brain, some of our guys came out and cruised through A ball, and then cruised into double A ball. And if their stuff allowed them, we had done a fairly good job, in my opinion, developing pitchability. If stuff allowed them, they were getting outs in double A. What would happen is at some point in double A or triple A is the stuff really becomes you have to have a certain level. No matter what your pitchability is, in, out, up, down. I can remember Adam Mills telling me when he got to AAA, because we went and watched a start here in Charlotte when he was with the Red Sox, and he was the first guy in his draft class that included David Price to get to AAA. Now, David played in the World Series later that year, but Adam was the first guy of that draft class in AAA. And, he had a couple of starts where, he had 30, 35, 40, 45 pitch innings. And you're looking at it, he's not giving up runs. He just couldn't put some guys away. He'd get a guy to 2 strikes, they'd flip it and foul it off, flip it and foul it off, flip it and foul it off, and waiting for him to make a mistake, and then bing, they're on the barrel. From a hitting standpoint, I think, the high school guys and Dylan Cruz and some of the hitters on this list, I think have been through it. Jacob Wilson at Grand Canyon has probably been through it, where there's enough information out. We have an idea of what his hot zone is and what his cold zone is. Now, can we execute and get there? Do we have the stuff to get there? Maybe, maybe not. But we're going to try to expose those issues. When you get to pro ball, I don't know that in A ball they can get to the issue. They have they have the stuff, but I don't know if they can get there. As you get into AAA, they're going to have the stuff, and they're going to be able to expose. If your swing's long and you got a hole, they're going to pound that hole. May miss occasionally, you may get you one, but they're going to pound that hole. And then as a hitter, can I adjust? Can I cover that hole up? And it's not necessarily even fixing the hole. I remember, in the Moneyball book and that all the things that came out, people are diagnosing hitters. Giambi was playing first base, and they talked about his cold zone was about at his belly button on the inner 3 inches. The problem is he had hot zones all around it. So if you missed by more than a baseball, you were in his area where he was going to hit the ball 100, 115 miles an hour. Now, if you hit in that cold zone, he swung and missed. But if he had shrunk that cold zone so much, he becomes an elite hitter. And I think that's what we're looking for hitters to do, is they need to have their flaws exposed. And it may be double A for some of these guys because they're so talented. But they need to have flaws exposed and then correct. Because when you get to the big league levels, even guys that have been there, for years, Austin Riley with the Braves, and I'm a Braves fan, so Dansby Swanson and the Freddie Freeman, those guys have holes that appear year to year, and they need to adjust and make corrections on them within week-to-week basis. So is that accurate, you think?
Yeah, there was actually, guys at the park this week talking about, if you look at Dylan Cruz's hot zones right now on True Media, it's all red. There's like no blue in the strike zone. So it's unbelievable that he's hitting everything right now, and up, down, in and out, and we haven't seen a year like that in a long time.
It must be nice to be him too, because you got Tommy Tang sitting behind him. So if you walk him, he steals second, and Tommy gets an RBI. So you have to attack him, which means as a pitcher going in, you better have really good command of something and try and, it's almost the Greg Maddux, Tony Gwynn deal, where Greg basically said, I can't get him out when I'm ahead, so I'm just going to throw the ball middle and see if I can freak him out by him thinking I've missed my spot. It's just hot zones everywhere. Let's just put it in the middle and let him hit it. He's going to do what he's going to do. Here's a line drive to left. Good. Great job, Tony. Trying to minimize from there.
I know you've spoken on it here before, but you go back to the New Hanover team that was so good when Trot was there. And, they were at the tournament I was at this weekend, and we were talking about it. And I was like, well, talking about Walker Jenkins getting walked. And I said, well, how much did Trot get walked? And then they start going through the guys in the lineup. It was like, kind of pick your poison right there. So it definitely matters when you have hitting around you.
A lot of times there were people already on base. So if you're walking him, you were scoring a run. I can remember I played in '93 I played with the state player of the year. He'd been drafted by the Braves that year. He played the big leagues for a while. He was the manager of the Charlotte Knights last year for a little bit. I cannot remember his name, but he was from that Gastonia area. And he was intentionally walked 11 times with the bases loaded that year, which I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. He can't be that good a hitter. And then I played with him for a week and went, yeah, okay, I could see where that at least comes in the conversation. I don't know
Yep.
that I would have done it, but I could see the conversation being had. So, let's flip the page. Let's start talking about the spring break and some of the places we've been. Let's just jump right in. Tell me, where did you go? And then out of each place you went to, give me a team that kind of stood out for positive reasons of the teams you watched, whether it's a team in the Power 25 or a team that's knocking on the door, or just a team that was fun to watch.
At Corinth Holders last week for the battle at the Boneyard. Obviously rain changed our schedules at the end of the week with the weather we had here, but great games there. Got to see Wake Forest, Middle Creek, Corinth Holders, Heritage, Wakefield, Fuquay. First three games of the day were well played games, not a lot of hitting, very clean. And you get to the last game, Corinth plays in it, and that was the first game that got out of hand. They got some guys on early, and they do a good job applying pressure on the base paths. But watching Wake Forest play against Middle Creek, I mean, you definitely see why we have them there. There's so much depth in that lineup, and they're feeling good right now. And I think they were the best team there. And you go down to Morehead City at the beach, and a ton of teams there. And Topsail was a team that stood out for me. But then you sit and watch New Hanover play, and you can see New Hanover matching up with really anybody in the state. With they have an older lineup. They have some good arms on the front end they can throw, and good defensively up the middle of the field. And I think playoff time is going to be very exciting this year.
While you were there, I actually got a chance to go to the Bobby Murray tournament. So I got to my old stomping grounds and hung around Millbrook High School and told everybody, and hung around by the sign with my name next to it so people could ask me about it and things like that. And it was good to be back there. It's a unique tournament. I think they said it was his 34th year. I can remember working that tournament when I was 11 and 12, and helping chase foul balls and things like that. And that was back when that conference, that Cap 8 conference, would bring in teams from Virginia and Ohio. It would be Cap 8 versus the world. Times have changed, things have evolved, and now it's gotten to where the Millbrook side had three teams and they played a doubleheader on day one, and then there was a Holly Springs side and they played a doubleheader on day one. And I got a chance to see the Millbrook side. Millbrook's an intriguing team. No power arms. The lineup has some depth, and they've got a guy in the middle of the lineup, Mason Fortune, who's a quarterback and a highly regarded quarterback from what I can tell. I haven't read up on him a ton, but he's a good athlete. He's got hand strength. He can get to velocity. He has good barrel awareness, and so he has a chance to drive in runs. He reminded me a little bit of Sam Howell. He's not nearly as physical as Howell was at Sun Valley. The quarterback's going to be with the Redskins this year. But it's the fact that they're such good athletes. They have that hand strength, and it's just a direct swing, and I'm just going to put the barrel on it, and I'm strong enough the ball's going to jump off the barrel, and everything's head-high line drive. I think if they were getting 300, 400 at-bats a year, both guys, I put a draft number on Hal, during his junior year, and he obviously didn't play his senior year because he'd gone on to college to start his career there. But just in tracking him, I wondered what that swing would do. I don't think Fortune's quite as far along as Howell was in the box. I don't think I think he's a really good prospect in terms of being a quarterback. But I wonder if he was getting 400 swings or at bats a year, if that swing wouldn't have a little bit more leverage to it. So they were fun to watch. From a mound standpoint, they threw a ton of breaking balls in the zone and really played defense behind that. And they trust, hey, we're going to keep guys off balance. We're going to locate fastball down, and we can spin breaking ball anytime we want. And it kept some good teams off balance. They beat Sam Harris. Sam had Broughton was being one hit, but had scored one run. And Sam took it into the seventh, and with 2 outs and 2 strikes, they get a bleeder, get another bleeder, and then hit a ball in the gap that scores a run. The ball's thrown away, and another run comes through. So it was good to see competitive games. And Millbrook's one of those clubs that they keep things close. They like what they can do at the end of the game. So are they a power 25 team? I would like to see a power arm on the front end, somebody that imposes some fear early in the tournament. But they're also one of those teams, if they get rolling in the tournament and get some confidence because they can keep hitters off balance, they may create some issues. The next day, I was in Pitt, the Pitt County Classic. It's raining. It was 85 at Millbrook. I got up on whatever morning, Friday morning, and it was 68. I got to the park, it was 60. First pitch was thrown, it was 55. The end of game one, it was 53, and it continued just to drop. And it was drizzling and dreary all day. Greenville Rose and Rollsville played a tight game. I like Greenville Rose. They lost, but I like that lineup. I like what they do on the mound. That was a tough day for baseball, and Roseville did a great job. And then I saw D.H. Conley and A.C. Reynolds play for about 4 innings. And they actually got into the fifth. Both teams scored 2 runs in the fifth to make it 5-5, and the umpires saw guys slipping all over the place on the grass and said, hey, we're at a good stopping point. It's 5-5. We'll revert back to the inning before. It's 3-3. It's a tie. We shut it down. We move on. Nobody gets hurt. So, but hats off to the Greenville community and then the people that do that field where Greenville Rose plays, because it was in great shape and held a ton of water. And then we all had Saturday off. Got a chance to do Easter at home on Sunday. And then I'm trying to remember Monday, I did the Rowan County tournament and saw several fun teams there. Hickory Ridge is a fun team to watch. Obviously, when Mako throws and the depth of the lineup at East Rowan, they're a very, very good team. They'll be dangerous in the postseason. I think Cobb Hightower had 9 at-bats and 8 barrels. And they actually split. Lake Norman found a way. I'm sorry, not Lake Norman, Mooresville. The coaching staff at Mooresville does a tremendous job. Those kids just play. And they pick up the baseball.
They played doubleheaders that day, right?
They did.
Every team played.
Just about. Mooresville was one of the teams that didn't. So they caught East Rowan on the second game, and their first game, or their only game, was that 8:00 at night game. But it was a game that was just kind of a grind game, and for whatever reason, Mooresville does a good job as well. When they go get arms, they're down in the zone. They spin breaking ball in the zone, and keeps good high school hitters off balance and gives them a chance to kind of execute offensively late. So they were fun to watch. I did the Jack Sink tournament at 2 spots. I was at South Mech and then at East Mech. I saw South Mech and Parkwood play. Cam Bagwell, who's a 2020, is he a 5?
4.
He's a 4. He's back on the mend, and they're hoping to have him back on the bump for the playoffs and getting him a couple outings here in the coming weeks. There was rumors he may have actually was going to throw in their second game that day before I left and went over to East Mech, and they beat Charlotte Christian 1-0. But Cole Gillis threw a gem, so I think they just let Cole roll. But I think from reports, we haven't seen it, Bagwell's been in that 88 range, just kind of working back into shape. So that's good. That's really good news for South Mech, really good news for Cam. And then I got a chance to see Porter Ridge. And Porter Ridge lost 2 really good players to combine before the season started, an arm and a catcher that's also kind of a dual guy in high school. But they just kind of keep plugging. And Shane Brown, who played for me at Charlotte, doing a tremendous job with that program. Love watching them play, and we're going to get into one of their players here in a little bit. So that got me to Terry Sanford, and then Terry Sanford, I was on fumes a little bit, but East Bladen came into the week. I think they were 4-6 on the year coming into the week. They won 2 games to get to the championship day. I think they knocked off Richmond County. I had to go back and look at it. Or Wayne Country Day, or they knocked off somebody. And you're like, okay, that's a really good win. The top 4 in their lineup can go. And then they went last night. They scored 9 runs on Terry Sanford, and they had a 5-run lead in the second. Bang, bang, bang. Little short on the mound, but they play hard, and they were fun to watch. And I got a chance, and Milton Center, who a lot of our fans in the Triangle may know, had retired from Fuquay, and he's moved down to that area. He's actually an assistant coach on that team, and I think obviously anytime Coach Center's around, he's going to have a positive impact. But they were a fun group to watch. So that's kind of the quick briefing on that and everybody we saw. But let's jump into some players. Matt, let's start with uncommitted seniors. Were there a couple uncommitted seniors that kind of stood out for you as you were going through and watching games? I know we're going to have all this information going out on our blogs, but just give me a quick rundown on some guys that maybe popped for you that were still uncommitted.
Cole Quinlan, arm at Heritage, threw really well. He was limited in his innings. I know they had conference play this week, so a lot of teams were breaking up their guys a little bit, trying to get them a little short outing, but he just went out and dominated. Mid-80s fastball in the zone the whole time. Like his breaking ball, confident. He pitched well. Surprised he's uncommitted, honestly. Middle Creek had two. Blaze Leonard, outfielder. Athletic, comfortable in the box. Got some good swings off against Wake Forest. Bryce Dale, corner infielder for him, pitcher. Threw strikes on the mound, but he looks like he could be on a football field.
Physical.
Looks good in the box. Yeah, physical kid. Good-looking body. Then you get down to, I believe, East Carteret is the team. Jackson Gals, left-handed hitter. I'm sorry, East Duplin. Duplin. Played middle linebacker for their state championship football team. Left-handed arm, 80-82. Through 7 innings, game went extra innings. He left the game 2-2 tie, all in the zone, pitched well. And then West Carteret has an unsigned senior, Josh Mason. Saw him last year, played well. We saw him at state games. Had a little bit of an arm issue, so he's been playing some different positions defensively. Athletic, can go get it in center field. Swung the bat well, drove some balls, and then New Hanover, Connor Marin plays third base for them. Winds blowing in down at Big Rock in Morehead City. Hit one to the warning track, drove the ball well, but that's naming a few for you after a week of baseball.
Yeah, and obviously we'll have a ton of information coming out, some video coming out on those guys from what you saw. But yeah, Connor's a name that sticks for me. It comes up every time we're asked, "Hey, who's still out there? What's going on?" I'm like, there's a really good baseball player at New Hanover, and we don't know everything that's going on in the recruiting process and everything about every young man, but he's going to find a place to play, and I think he's got a chance to impact because he's willing to play multiple positions. He's got a chance to hit, and he understands the game. He comes from a program that's taught in the game. And I think he understands how it's to be played. So that's a good list there. We're going to start from my end. Weddington High School threw a senior left-hander, Sean Katzbaugh, or Katzbach, B-A-C-H. I don't know how he pronounces it. But it's a lower slot lefty. I mean, he's sidearm. It's a lot of arm side, even on fastball and slider. It was 78-81. So it's not overpowering stuff. But in terms of slotting, he's different. He's a different lane. It's long. It's lanky. He's a good athlete. So I think he has a chance to maybe impact somebody just because he throws from a slot that may not. There may be good college staffs that don't have that slot. And he provides that fill, and he can get left-handed hitters out because he was very tough on them. But he can get right-handers out too because it's just coming from a different angle. Hickory Ridge has an outfielder that's he's committed to Catawba Valley. I think he's waiting to see what's going to happen with that program, which we've heard maybe this week we'll have an update as to whether or not they're going to keep it. Which, knock on wood, let's go keep the program. There's too many good players in North Carolina. We can fill your roster. I know their coaching staff's working hard to keep him, but Balcom's right-handed hitting outfielder with strength in his hands. I would have him average to above running, good route runner in the outfield, solid baseball player, and I think his best is going to be ahead of him. So I think a junior college situation, would allow him, to continue to develop for another couple years. Another name from the Rowan County tournament, Lucas Graham, left-handed hitting second baseman. Probably average to maybe slightly below speed, but he plays a little bit quicker on the infield. I think he's probably a second baseman. You may be able to shift him over to third if you position him correctly. Maybe a first baseman. I would be interested to see if the arm strength, if you could shift him behind the plate, because I think the bat plays. You're just looking for a defensive position where that bat plays, and he has to be open to all that stuff too. But I've seen him twice this year, and all the guy does is find barrels. Left-handed pitching, right-handed pitching, velocity, spin. It's just balanced and simple, and bang, 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 he's on the barrel. And then the final one, and you're going to think I'm crazy when I make this statement, but Matt, because we don't know who he is. It's the first time I've heard the name. He may be the best catch and throw guy. Be careful with this. We got some really good ones. He's in the top 3 catch and throw guys in the state. There's a young man named Lance Noon. He's at Terry Sanford. I think it's his first year there. I think there's a Texas background. I know there's an ROTC background because I think he's earned some scholarship opportunities through ROTC. He may be softly committed to a school through the ROTC stuff, but I think he still wants to play baseball. So anything that happens with baseball would trump it. He's physical. He's put together. I mean, it's broad shoulders, thin waist, thick thighs. It's average bend behind the plate, but the hands work pretty good. And between the innings, I mean, he threw 6 balls in a row between innings that were between the knees and the belt on the second baseman on the bag, 197 to 205. In game, he was 209 on the bag. He was 206 on the bag. He caught 2 steals there, and then he picked off a runner on first base, throwing behind a guy. Offensively, it's defense over offense right now. But if you're a college program and you need a catch and throw guy, or you need a guy to come compete and push a catcher, you may want to call Coach Guy at Terry Sanford, because that dude can really, really catch and throw. And so I was excited. And again, I'm going to go back through my notes. I'm saying top 3 right now, but I am punch drunk because there was a lot of baseball. I got home at 2 a.m. I was still jacked up from trying to make the drive home. So it was about 4 before I got to bed. I need to go back and watch some video and make sure what I'm saying. But as we're doing this podcast, I would stick by that. So, Matt, real quick, any names that kind of popped for you, underclass names that either we didn't know or we knew of, but maybe they played a little better than what we thought?
Yeah, I got to see several over the last week. Corner Toters has a shortstop, Reese File, athletic kid, sophomore. The night game there, he comes out, hits 3 balls on the barrel. Still needs a little work action-wise at shortstop, but there's some foot speed there and athleticism. Isaac Miles at First Flight, we saw him at a preseason All-State event. Saw him throw this week in Morehead City. Threw really well. Then Hoggard High School, saw Hoggard yesterday. Several left-handed hitters in that lineup. They have a shortstop, Bonnet, I believe is his last name. First name slipping my mind right here.
Logan
Ponnet.
I saw him last year in Wilson, and he popped for me too. Just barrel.
Yeah, high energy player. Coaching staff loves him. Luke Vargo, left-handed hitter. He played third for him yesterday. Coaching staff said he's bounced around a little bit. Left-handed hitter, put some good swings on the ball. They threw an arm. Chase Busher, very intriguing. I think he was 85, 87. There's more in the tank there. Topsail has a freshman shortstop, Gibson Todd, athletic kid. Saw him put some good swings on the ball. South Brunswick, their catcher, Patrick Bolt, hit a grand slam. Throws pretty well from behind the plate, but he's been kind of part of the group hitting behind Walker Jenkins that has produced for South Brunswick.
And again, reminder, we're going to have a bunch of information on all these players. We're trying to keep this podcast underneath 6 hours because we could go in depth on a lot of these guys. I'm going to give you a name that's going to be in our conversations for future games. Left-hander, I'd never seen him. He plays for an alum of mine, so that's freaking 15 minutes down the road. So me and Brownie are going to have a chat about this one. But Garrett Long, we actually saw him as an 8th grader when he was with Mission Baseball. He still plays with them. He's a 2025. In the summers, he's young enough he can play with the 26s. So it's still a very young, developing But it's a lean, athletic body, probably 6', 6'1". I'm going to say 160, but that's a guess. It's kind of a lower slot. It's like a 3/4 slot. It's athletic. It's quick. It's whippy. And he faced a lineup with Charlotte Latin that doesn't have a ton of punch, but they were very competitive. And he probably threw 90% fastballs. And it was anywhere from 83 to 87 with life. And I mean, just taking off in the zone. The spin rate didn't suggest it had a ton of carry, but just your eyes, you could tell that ball's jumping on hitters. So you talk about a lower slot guy that has ride. Typically, we think of those lower slot guys are sink guys. So when you start seeing lower slot guys that can carry that ride through the zone, it's a different guy. He's got to show a slider. He's going to show a little bit of improved changeup. But Garrett Long's a name that we may be discussing here as part of a draft, type talk in 2 years if he continues to develop. And again, that's one look, but it was a very, very impressive look. Cannon School, not a program we've talked a ton about in the last couple of years, but they're going to make some noise because they threw strikes in the front end. I think they already have a win over Charlotte Christian this year, and we looked at that and went, that wasn't a bad loss. That the guy that beat Charlotte Christian's a strike thrower with 2 in the zone, some funk to it, and then they were physical in their lineup. Tyler Green's a 2024 first baseman, left-handed hitter, hit a home run to tie the game in the 6th. I mean, he looks the part, and there's bat speed. Victor Lopez is their shortstop, 2025. I'm going to say, again, 6'1", 170. It's a guess. I don't have the specific number, but he moves around the right way. I mean, he looks the part at short. The exchange, once the ball's in his glove, he caught the ball fine. Once the ball's in his glove, his actions through exchange and release are a little bit raw. There's only one arm action really right now, and it's everything's kind of in that high 3/4 slot. But we see that in some Northern kids sometimes. So I don't know his background, but you see some Northern kids get to college, and then all of a sudden they're able to loosen those arm slots and make routine plays look a little bit more routine. Victor was that guy for me. I think the bat's going to play too. J.H. Rose has a shortstop, Alex Popovich, Jr., 6', 180. The action stood out, especially on a rainy, cold day. Played with some pace and some energy. AC Reynolds. We're going to talk about Cade Gardner, who's a guy we've talked about. Both you and I like. We see these guys in workouts. We see these guys in settings that we're controlling. They're not natural baseball settings. We're going to move you around every single inning. We're timing you for this. We're wanting to see these. It's a baseball, but it's metrics baseball. And we liked him in that environment. I loved him in real live baseball. He plays with pace. He plays with energy. He's got an idea what he's doing. Every single at bat, there's a plan. It's a direct path with barrel feel. There's strength in the hands. I think Cade Gardner is going to be a really good player at the next level for somebody when they get in there and see him. Carson Cherry, again, another player that we've liked at some events. A little bit undersized, 5'9", 160, plays with quickness. Facing Chance Mako, and Mako was fairly dominant throughout the entire night, except Mr. Cherry, who went L8, ball in the barrel, and I mean absolutely crushed. Double over the L7's head, absolutely crushed. And then his final at bat against somebody in relief, F7, and a ball he just missed. So a little bit undersized, but what's the one thing hitters have to do at the next level? They have to handle velocity. And Carson's showing he has the chance to do that. Midway High School got locked up with Richmond County yesterday at Terry Sanford. I got to see Cameron Seagraves Campbell commit 87 to 92, 2,500 spin rate, ball riding through the zone. Hard banger, punched 11 or 12. It was a really good outing, but he was outdueled. John Nelson McLam, tall, lanky, broad shoulders. He gets turned in his delivery. He's got his back teed. His arm wraps a little bit. Really good feel for his arm side. Really good fastball, breaking ball mix. Fastball is only up to 81, but I think, again, it's different. It's a lower slot left-hander pitching from the far left-hand side of the rubber that's big. So he's coming from some angles that hitters don't ever see and they don't ever practice. And that's a name to watch. I don't know that he's going to be a guy that's off the board early in the junior class, but as we get to the state games, he's one outing away from somebody to pop deciding, hey, that's a guy we're going to run a scholarship offer out to. And then two names from Terry Sanford, Brent Smith, who's a guy that we know, I think C35, really athletic, catches the ball, stable, balanced in the box. He does everything average to above, everything. But then they had a freshman last night, Josh Mazingo, is playing second opposite Brent. And Josh, good actions, plays with confidence, hits at the top of the order. Didn't get a chance to see him swing. He's spread out. He's got vertical bat, a little tipped, kind of a tip load. But he drove pitch counts up. I think he walked multiple times, and he caused some issues when he was on the bases. He closed the game at 81-82. I think he's a position player over a pitcher. And then the final name, because we don't see this a lot, and I'm going to give you two more names, sorry. The first one is Amar Lewis, and I should have mentioned him with a senior, because he's a senior, 3-sport start, East Bladen. Junior college guys, there's a 6'4", 205-pound, looks the part of a pro guy who has a chance to hit. It's raw. He's a first baseman. Maybe he's an outfielder, but he's got a chance to hit. Go get him. He's ready. And then the last name is actually a Charlotte softball commit. She's playing for Terry Sanford, Skylar Young. She did not get in the game, but she worked out at short. I got a chance to watch her move around and throw. Apparently, she is going to be a very, very good softball player for Charlotte, but she's got a chance at some point, maybe the next couple of years, to push some people and get some playing time over there at Terry Sanford. She's a good player. And it gives you an idea of some of the depth, because I think if she's at a lot of other high schools I've seen, she is playing. But the depth Terry Sanford has, they don't necessarily have that one standout guy, because they're going to be somebody we talk about for the Power 25. I think they're now 19-2 or 18-2. Are they a team that scares you if you get in the playoffs? Probably not. But they just keep winning. They won 12-9. They won 1-0. They won 5-0. They win 4-3. They find ways to win. The lineup has a little bit of depth. They got a bunch of guys that can throw strikes. So, but Skylar was fun to watch her in and out and warm ups and watch her interact. And so, kudos to her teammates for being inclusive and all the stuff that people talk about in the world today. I just thought that was pretty neat. So. We're at 42 minutes. I feel like we're freaking running a sprint, dude, trying to get through all the stuff we saw. Let's talk a little bit about next week. I know this week we pushed the Power 25 to next week just because we were on the road and there's a lot of things going on. Player of the week, Diamond Notes, will encompass 2 weeks. And so we'll be able to talk about and let coaches kind of give us some updates on all those guys. What are some of your thoughts as you get ready to start whittling down that Power 25? How many teams do you think are you looking at? Are we going to have to add? And is there room to add? Or has anybody down at that 15 to 25 played their way out?
I think there's definitely some teams we need to add. Some teams have played their way out, and then obviously talking to people all the time and what we hear, in the last 2 weeks, being able to actually get out and see those teams, I think it probably confirmed some of what we heard, and I think it'll look a little different. Seeing Wake Forest made me feel really good about where we've had them all year, even though their early season struggles. But then you see New Hanover, Middle Creek, Corinth. There's teams right there that they match up in the playoffs. We could see another year with a lot of early exits. And I was telling a guy this week, you saw Richmond Senior yesterday. I said that's a team you don't want to see in the first round.
No.
You get Seagraves, and anything can happen. They win a first round game and then play really well round 2, and Seagraves again round 3. You never know what can happen.
That's exactly what they're set up to do. And I think, and again, it goes back to those conferences that really test teams throughout the year. Because if they have the ace and he can be dominant, they're boom, got check number 1, we win. Now in game 2, maybe they give up 6 in the first. You know what? We did that earlier in the year and we won. We'll figure it out. Let's just relax and play. And then you're up 6-0, and all of a sudden in the third it's 6-4, and in the fifth it's 6-5. It ain't the team that's winning that's feeling good about that. We gave up a 6-run lead. We're only up 1 now, and this other team, they've just continued to go. Now we got to figure out what to do. I watching Terry Sanford and the way they managed that game last night, you could see Coach Guy even building towards what could possibly happen. They played 3 games in 3 days. Their starter last night is a position player. He's also their number 2, but You and I both know how hard it is to play 3 games in 3 days. There's a reason college games on Sunday look messy. Guys are tired. Now we're asking high school guys, they're exhausted. Plus, their normal biorhythms are screwed up because they're not in school. They're not eating at the same times they've been eating for the last 4 months. They're not. All these things are different. So there's all sorts of reasons games can get out of whack. When the game gets out of whack, though, you could see coaches managing those situations for who's going to relax, who's going to be calm. Do I need to see if this guy can get me through, or do I need to just go to the next arm? Because in the playoff situation, I don't need to go to my third and fourth and fifth arm in the second inning. Can this guy that's getting lit up a little bit relax and throw me 1-0? And if he throws me 2 zeros, then we're rolling. But he's got to get me one. And we saw a little bit of that over the week with the teams that we've seen.
Yeah, a lot of teams you could tell we're trying to get guys some time in preparation for the conference tournament and the playoffs, and saw that with South Brunswick yesterday. They threw some guys that haven't threw a whole lot, trying to get them ready for when they're needed late in the year. And a lot of good baseball teams in North Carolina, and there's a lot of conferences that have more depth than what a lot of people know. So you see some records, and you can't get caught up in record too much. You gotta you see it, you realize, hey, playoff time, these teams can make a run.
Well, I think one of the obviously you got the Power 25, and I'm going to assist in that. Our rest of our staff's going to assist in that, and then part of my responsibility is doing our Mid Atlantic Regional. So taking South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland, and getting all 4 of you guys to kind of at this point, early in the year, it was like, I don't know that we have 5 teams that need to be in this. I think now that you've been on the road, now that I've been on the road, there's going to be more from you. I know it's coming from Virginia, maybe a little bit from Sammy in South Carolina. There's going to be some banging on the table of my top 10 are regional teams. My top 3 should really be considered for national. Because, and I spent time watching at the NHSI. I saw 5 or 6 clubs that we had in our national top 25. East Forsyth and Wake Forest would be fine matching up with them. I don't know that they're going to win 2 out of 3, but I don't know that they're going to lose 2 out of 3 either. Those, if they're slotted in at number 23, number 20 nationally, I can defend that. I have no issues defending that. And how far down that line do we go? Because, like you said, New Hanover and Middle Creek and some Corinth Holders now they're starting to get some guys back. Are there 5 clubs, 6 clubs that are going to be high enough ranked in our Southeast or in our Mid-Atlantic region rankings that now I can really push? Can we get 2 teams? We haven't had any in the national rankings. Can I get 2? If I get 2, can I get 3? I don't think the separation between the clubs I saw in California and Florida and what we've got in North Carolina is as big as I thought it was going to be. And it's not talent. It's not the talent across the state. It's the delusion of the talent. There's more high schools being built and high school teams are being spread apart, where a lot of those teams in California and Florida are built not through recruiting, but through recruiting. They're able to pull kids from different areas and put them together. So it's going to be an interesting week for us. And obviously Power 25, I think, is a Monday, national or regional rankings Tuesday, and maybe national rankings on Wednesday, something like that. So I'm sure I'm going to be on the phone a bunch with our other regional guys as you guys are pecking me about how in the world can this team not be higher.
Just tell them to give you 1 team each, and we'll fill in the rest with North Carolina and call it good.
And we could. I honestly think, and they would match up, and I think they'd be fine. But I know Sammy, and I know Shank and Burton and those guys in Virginia. They were in a really good spring break tournament and got a chance to see some of those clubs for an extended period of time. And it's the same thing, like you see a team play for 3 days and they play hard and they play clean. It becomes a lot easier to defend. Well, they don't have a prime arm. Me with Millbrook, and obviously I went to school there. There's a little bit of a draw there for bias there or whatever, but they don't have a power arm. But they ran out 3 dudes that were, anytime they wanted, here's breaking ball, bang. And then they were okay breaking balls. They weren't flipping them in there. They were okay breaking balls. They threw them for strikes. And so I can now defend. They don't have a power arm, but, and it gives you that chance. So
same thing with Hoggard. They may not have pitching depth, but you watch their lineup swing it. You face them when you're throwing your threes and fours. You might be in for a long day.
Well, so Tommy, their head coach at Hoggard, played for me at Charlotte, also played for me with the Wilson Tobbs, and helped me get the Charlotte job. But Tommy doesn't text or email me enough, so we're not ranking them. So I'm kidding. Hoggard people don't know. That was a joke. That was a joke. But yes, Tommy, you can reach out. Let me know how you're doing. So, it's going to be a fun run here to the end. And it is. We are at the point now where it's going to be a little bit more of a sprint. So the next 2 to 3 weeks, getting ready for the conference tournaments, sprint to that part. I think the biggest determining factor on what we're going to like as we get into the state playoffs, one, who finishes strong, which lineup continues to build depth, even off the bench, which bullpen finds that one other guy, and then two, who's healthy, and because that has always played a factor in North Carolina.
And there's a couple teams that are ranked right now that I think are getting hit with the injury bug a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that.
Did you see injuries over the spring break week? Did you see guys going down?
Did not.
So I've always wondered. I saw more than I would like to have. A couple of them were gory and just freak things, and you go, okay, he got his eye or nose busted up, got hit. He's going to be fine, but you see soft tissue stuff, and again, it gets back to most of these guys aren't used to playing 3 days in a row, especially at the intensity level that they do with high school games day in and day out. And so, I saw some soft tissue stuff. Nothing that was permanent. Nothing that's going to wreck somebody's future. Just may put them on the mend for 2 to 4 weeks. But now 2 to 4 weeks is now conference tournament play. And now we're shortening that time. So it's always something I kind of like to watch is when their schedules get different. When they get taken out of school, their lunch, their diet, their diets change. How does that affect how they stay healthy? And I think it's important. They got through these couple of weeks. For the ones that are still going through spring break, can they get through these couple of weeks healthy? And then can they take another step forward? Hey, we played great. We had a great time. We found that mojo. Boom. Can we keep it moving as we head towards the end of the season?
Yeah, different week for these kids playing at 10 a.m. and no school, different schedule, different routine. So I'm sure they may not like going back to school, but they'll like playing at 7 p.m. again.
All right. Well, hey, we're over 50 minutes, which is kind of our cutoff. So we're going to go ahead and shut this thing down here. Matt, you got about 250 players to write up. If you could have those to me in the next couple hours, we'll get them posted, and we'll go from there. It may take us 4 or 5 days, guys. We got a lot to write up, but I'm excited to see everything that you saw and see the video and see the write-ups. I'm sure the same for me. And, the final thing I do want to say, and I kind of want to get your opinion on this, I had 11 different people come up to me and say, hey, love the podcast, love what you guys are doing. I'm glad. That was awesome. That made my day every place I went. I'm also glad I didn't have anybody come up and go, you guys suck. But it's always, hey, you're the podcast guy. Yeah, I am. It's okay. No, everybody was so good, so gracious. I really appreciate you reaching out. And did you run into some, we'll call them quote unquote fans?
Yeah, I did. People who listen to the podcast, check the Power 25, and you like when people appreciate you being out to their games and getting to see it, and we really enjoy that. And all the ballparks I was at, they were great hosts and good conversations, and it's been a really fun week.
Well, like I said at the beginning, we're tired, but we have the greatest jobs in the world. Our job is to go watch baseball, so don't feel any pity for us being away from home or being in the car until midnight because we don't feel any pity. We would do it all over again. So for Matt Payne, I'm Brandon Hall. This is the Prep Baseball Report of North Carolina podcast, and we'll see you again next week.